Nick Walker out of the Olympia. The question is, why? I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. Dave Palumbo here with an RX Muscle rant. As you heard earlier today or early yesterday, Nick Walker out of the Olympia. The question is, why? Remember, last year, Nick had a hamstring tear. About 2 weeks out from the Olympia, he made every attempt possible to try to come back, make it to the show, couldn't do it, had to drop out. It was a terrible, terrible scene. He was really upset. He made a very emotional announcement about it. Talked to him at the Olympia. You can tell he was visibly upset. Saw his parents. He's got great supportive parents. They were there with him. And, this was a real missed opportunity last year for Nick Walker. As we know, everyone was a little off last year. This could have been the year that Nick might have possibly won. I was speculating that myself. And I saw the pictures of the way he looked leading up to that Olympia, and he looked phenomenal. This year, different story. We saw Nick moving from Florida to Vegas, back to Jersey, back to Florida. Sometimes moving around is not always the easiest thing to do. It kind of messes with your routines. We know that routines are very important for success in bodybuilding. But Nick Walker is a single-minded guy. He is the guy who hasn't missed a food meal in 8 years. He never misses the gym. He's always on the mark. He never shows up at a show out of shape. This year at the New York Pro, where he had to qualify for the Olympia, was the first year I'd ever seen him a little bit off. And you know what? I thought he left the door open enough that Martin Fitzwater pushed his way through and possibly could have gotten the win there. Luckily, Nick skated out of there with the win, but he looked big and full. And I said, all right, you know what? This guy's just got to dial in the conditioning a little bit more for the Olympia, and he'll be right back to where he was. Because, the guy's got crazy, freaky size. He has separation in the muscle. He's got crazy vascularity. He's a mutant. He's a freak on stage. And the fans love it. The judges love it. He's got a lot of energy on stage. He brings something special, to the sport. And that's why we're all excited when we hear updates from him and we see him talk confidently about what he's going to bring to the stage. But I know that personally, I had not seen that side of Nick that we were used to seeing, where he was very confident, making predictions. He's going to win the Olympia, seeing a lot of updates from him. He's not the kind of guy to hide, from social media. He's out there. He's putting stuff up on a regular basis because he's like, look, this is who I am. Here I am. Look at me. I'm coming to win the Olympia. I'm going to bring my best. And that was always, the message he sent. We didn't see that this year. So that, to me, was a little suspicious. And I had mentioned it a few weeks ago in talking about who we should look out for on that Olympia stage. I said, it's kind of weird that we hadn't seen Nick. I did put it out there. I saw some pictures about 2 weeks ago that someone had sent me kind of secretly on the down low, which of course I would never release to anyone because they were given to me on the down low. And I just didn't like the way he looked. This was about 3 weeks out from the show. And I said, well, he's behind. Matter of fact, there was a comparison picture. I think it was from like 3 weeks from the New York Pro versus 3 weeks from the Olympia. And I'm like, he's like behind, and not behind in conditioning. He just didn't look full. He didn't look gnarly, veiny, grainy. He looked almost natural to me. Now, I say that tongue-in-cheek, but not really, because I've had to have conversations with bodybuilders who I've worked with, who I've said to them, you're leaning out and everything for this show, but you look kind of natural. And it's a very uncomfortable conversation to have with someone when you tell them that, because it's kind of insulting in a way, but at the same time, it's me giving my honest opinion that something doesn't look like it's working. Okay, now that if they're eating the diet and they're sticking to the plan, and we know that Nick doesn't deviate from anything. And we know that you're training hard in the gym. We know Nick doesn't deviate from that. If you don't look like you're on a cycle of anabolics, and you don't look like your skin is busting, and full and round and gnarly, veiny, if you're not exhibiting that, but yet you're doing everything right, something else has to be wrong. And the only other option, in my experience, I've been doing this for over 30 years now, is usually something with the gear is wrong. Now, is the gear fake? Is it underdosed? Are you doing something different that you've done in the past? I'm assuming he's not doing anything different than what he did in the past, but he could be using gear that's possibly not good. Now, I don't know this for a fact. I'm putting it out there only because the look that he had rang some bells off in my head and set some red flags off. So, obviously, I would have to believe that someone of his caliber at his level, if he's smart, would test his gear. So if you're not getting gear from a legitimate compounding pharmacy or a pharmacy, in another country, and you're using underground gear, you'd have to be a nutcase not to test the gear. I don't care who gave it to you, and vouch for it. You should get those Roy test kits that Bill Llewellyn makes. I sell them on DavePalumbo.com, and test all your compounds. It's $20 a tester. It's a pretty small investment, especially if you're going to the Olympia and hopefully going to win $600,000, right? So I think that I don't know if that's an issue for him or not, or if that was one of the reasons that maybe something he was using wasn't good. It's impossible to know because I'm not in his camp and I don't know what he was taking and I don't know, what the source of it was, and I don't know if he tested it or not. It's a possibility. I'm just throwing it out there because I'm trying to analyze what could potentially be wrong. And I don't think it's a lack of mental focus because by his own admission, Nick told us, I was all in to this.
Coming here for the Olympia prep, I truly felt relaxed. I felt okay, and I guess my body did too.
My head was in the game. I gave 100%. I ate right, trained right. Just didn't look the way I was supposed to look. So I don't buy into the whole story that his coach, Matt Jensen, said, hey, and it was really not a story. It was really, it's him speculating, right? It's a theory. Well, Nick thrives in chaos, and when there was no chaos and everything was nice and quiet and peaceful in his life, his body didn't respond. I'm not buying that. It sounds like a fairy tale that they're selling us. And it could be a fairy tale that they're selling us to cover up for what might be the real reason, or it could just be that they don't know. and obviously, pulling the plug on something a week out from the Olympia is a good move from a marketing standpoint, because if Nick doesn't look good and he doesn't place in the top 6, his stock goes way down, right? I mean, that's not good for his brand or the supplement brand that he's representing, or all the supplement brands that he represents, because he represents more than one, company. However, let's go back to commitments. You make a commitment to do the Olympia, you sign the contract. Unless you have a major health issue, okay, or you get hurt like he did last year, you really shouldn't be able to weasel out of the contract, okay, just because you don't feel you look good and you're not going to do well. I know back in the day, they used to fine guys for doing that. And if you remember, Flex Wheeler competed, one year he knew he was going to be out of shape, and he created that he got attacked by a ninja story, or something like that. And he fought off 25 guys, and because he had to do that, because if he didn't do that, they were going to fine him, for not doing the Olympia. So I understand why he did it, even though it was ridiculous, the story told. But you can't just say, well, I don't want to do the show. I'm a week out. I don't like the way I look. That's not really a valid option when you're at the highest of highest levels. It's like the Super Bowl team saying, you know what? We're really not prepared for this game. I think we're just not going to do we're not going to do the game. There's no Super Bowl. The show always must go on, and if you're not at your best, well, you do it for the fans. You show up. There's been plenty of guys in the history of competing that have done shows when they knew they were not at their best. Lee Priest has done a couple shows by his own admission that he knew he wasn't at his best. His sponsor made him do it. He did it out of responsibility, and commitment to the sponsor. He wasn't his best, and he knew it, and it sucked, but he sucked it up and he did it. A lot of people believe that Nick should have also taken that responsibility and said, look, I made this commitment. I know I'm not my best, but I'm going to get on that stage for the fans, and I'm going to give them my best I have. And that's all you can ever do. I think that it was probably not the right thing to do because of the level that he's at the Olympia level. Had it been a local show and he didn't look right, I can understand that. But at the Olympia level, the Arnold level, when you make a commitment of that type and you sign a contract, you got to do the show unless something's wrong. Now, a lot of people said, well, he probably submitted, blood work that's off. Everybody builds blood work is off a week out from the Olympia. That's not acceptable. He doesn't have anything wrong with him physically, or they would have announced it. He's a pretty transparent guy. So is Matt Jensen. They're stand-up people. They were so honest. They basically said, look, he just didn't look good. And we didn't want to put him up there. They told the truth. Why he didn't look good, we don't know. And they don't really know. I speculated earlier, but that could be the truth. It might not be the truth. I don't know. But at the end of the day, when you make an obligation and a commitment to do a show of that caliber, and the Olympia people are marketing the show on your back and selling tickets based on the fact that Nick Walker's in the show, it's not fair to the fans if you don't do the show just because you don't think you look good. Once again, if you get hurt or something happens, that's a different story. So, Brandon Curry was in the hospital the day before the show, and he still showed up at the Olympia and did it. And the guy placed fourth. Okay, so you take it off, you take your hat off to him. Dorian Yates tore his tricep and tore his quad muscle. Lost, I don't even know how many pints of blood also. All in the same year at 97. Still made it to the stage. Won controversially, but he was on that stage to do it. And he wouldn't have 6 Olympias if he didn't show up. So the take-home message is that if you want to be a great champion, you got to find a way to win. Even when you're not at your best. And that's the take-home message here. Nick Walker's a champion. He should have been on that Olympia stage. Even if he wasn't at his best, he should have looked for a way to somehow get into that top 5 and then regroup, figure out what went wrong in the offseason, and don't let it happen again. Let me know your opinion. Do you think Nick Walker dropping out was a letdown to the fans? Should he have been made to do the show, or possibly sanctioned for dropping out at the last minute? What do you guys think? I want to hear your opinion. Let us know in the comments below. Dave Palumbo with an RX Muscle Rant.